Hello everybody. Today I'm going to show you the main toolbar of Cohler Classical, or the button bar if you will. That's these buttons up at the top here. And they give you the most essential functionality of Cohler Classical in a single click. And as you mouse over each one, it tells you what it does, and in brackets it tells you the keystroke. So in short order, you'll be doing everything by keystroke, but this will provide a mechanism for you to learn the key commands. All of the commands and their keystrokes are in the menus up at the top here. So the first button, that's save the project to disk. Currently you can see this is modified, so I click this button and now it saves it. The next button is for loading takes or loading audio files. You should also watch the other video on loading and setup, but here let's say I click in this source group and now I click load takes. Tells me I have 132 takes in this directory. Let's say I want to load takes 40 to 45. I type that, click OK, and there we are. They're all loaded. They're all grouped already. So if I click on one, it selects the entire item group. This is a 40-track recording. So one-click functionality for loading into the correct tracks by track name. The next button toggles open and close the action list. Open, closed. The next button toggles open and close the mixer. Open, closed. This button toggles open and closed your time code. The default is that it's open. I had it closed just now, but the default is open. So there's your time code here. As you play, you can see the time code moving. But if you don't need the time code or it annoys you or whatever, you can just hide it. Unclick this and it's hidden. It's always still there. The time code is running, but it's hidden. This next button opens and closes your take number window. So you can see we have 132 takes already recorded in this directory. Watch the other video on this window. Shows you how to place it and size it. Same thing for the time code window. There's another video. The next button locks and unlocks your crossfades so that they can be moved around to make asymmetric fades. So let's edit this fade here. Currently the fade linkage is off, which means if I drag one side of this, it's going to drag them apart. If I have the fade linkage on, then when I drag one side, you see it sticks together. The whole fade sticks together. But if I turn the fade linkage off, now you can drag them apart and do asymmetric fades, etc., etc. You can make asymmetric shapes even without dragging them apart, but this allows you to place them independently of each other. If I relock and now I go to drag, watch what happens. It puts them back together because it's relocked. Okay? But most of the time you're going to want this button on, meaning their fades are locked, because most fades are locked to the two edges. But when you need to do an asymmetric fade, just click to unlock it. Very simple. This button here is for the drag lock. Now currently in the destination group I have that on. That means if I accidentally go and drag in the destination, instead of moving anything, it does a marquee item select. So it becomes a way of selecting items quickly, but it doesn't drag anything. It's a good idea to keep the drag lock on in your destination group because that's where you've assembled this edit, and nothing should move other than by source destination edits or adjustments of fades. On the other hand, your source groups, generally you want to be able to move around. So each group has its own setting for the drag lock. So you'll notice once I go into source group 1, that's not locked currently, which means I can drag this item back and forth. Okay? If I go into source group 2, the drag lock is off. I can set that drag lock independently for each group. So let's say I want it drag locked in source group 3. Oh, it was drag locked. So that's already drag locked. So if I come into this group and try to drag, it doesn't drag. But if I go into group 2, the drag lock is off. I can't drag. So again, that's just a convenience setting for quickly locking down to prevent you from moving stuff that you don't want moved. Then we get into the 4 buttons that are the basics of source destination editing. Setting an in point, setting an out point, and this SD is the source destination edit. Source is used to choose which group. Many times you don't have to do that because the source group is chosen by whichever group you most recently selected an in or an out point. But if you've selected in-out points on multiple source groups and then you want to choose one of those, that's what that button will do. So let me just quickly show you. I'll do a random edit. This is not an actual edit. I'll just do something quickly. So here I'm going to come here, click in. That sets the in point. Come here, sets the out point. And let's go to the destination. Go to here, click out. So now I have an in point and an out point, an in point and an out point. This is take 91 on the green track. This is take 92 here. So now I just click SD. It does the edit. It just inserted 91 into 92 right between that in and out point. I can undo that with a Command Z, undo command. As I was saying, let's say you had in-out points selected on multiple tracks. So let's say I have an in-out point here. So that, since I just selected those, that means the purple track is now the selected source. So if I do an source destination edit, it's going to put take 79 up in here, as you can see. Okay, I'll undo that. But let's say, okay, I've got an in-out set there and I have an in-out set here, but the current selected source is the purple track, but I want to now set it to the green track. So I'm on the green track, I click source. Now you notice the purple disappeared because it's no longer the selected source. Now the green track is the selected source. I hit SD. That's going to put take 91 up in there. Hit SD, and it puts take 91 up in there. So that's what those 4 buttons are for. Set the in point, set the out point, select which source, and do the edit. The next 4 buttons are for navigating on a track group. This takes you to the beginning of the track group, not timecode 0 as REAPER does, which is totally useless. And this takes you to the end of the last piece of audio in the group. Okay? If I go to a different group, this takes me to the beginning of that group and the end of that group, which are in totally different places from the destination group. Now, these 2 buttons inside here step you through edits and marks. So that's for walking through things. So I'll zoom in here so you can see a little bit. Let's say I had a mark here and a mark here, and my cursor is here. I hit the right button. It takes me first to the mark, left edge of the edit, center of the edit, right edge, next mark, etc. And the back button does the same thing. So this is what allows you to quickly step through your edits. And it works in every group. And if you don't like going to the edge, center, and right of each edit, you could reassign the Cohler classical command to these buttons to just go to the center of edits, for example. In that case, when you clicked it, it would do this. It would go there, then there, then there. So you can select which command you want that to use. There are many variations. Or if you wanted that to only go to marks, you could set it to just go to this and this, etc. Whatever you like it to do. By default, that is set to go to every mark and every edge and its center of every edit. Then we get to the recording arm button. This arms the entire group. So if let's zoom out here. Let's say I arm, and I'm about to record something into this source group. So I arm here. You can now see the mics are all moving. I'm armed, I'm ready to record. If I open up my take window, you see I've got 132 takes. And if I now click record, it's going to record take number 133. So that's just the record arm, and then you can watch the recording video. As you can see, you can move from group to group, and it automatically arms whichever group you want to record into. The next button is for playback horizontal scroll. When the cursor reaches the center of the screen on a playback, it will begin to scroll horizontally if that is selected. So if I select this and I start playing here, then it scrolls like that. If I turn it off, it stops scrolling. Turn it on. So that's for horizontal scroll. Then these 4 buttons you're familiar with: stop, play, pause, and record. Again, as you mouse over each button, it shows you the keystroke. So record is Command R, pause is Shift Return, play is > sign, and stop is a less than sign. It's all very intuitive. once you get to know it. And then you can also, of course, use all the keystrokes that are in the play record menu. So, for example, the normal play stop is just the space bar. But there are various other keystroke combinations that are very useful as well. So that's all there is to the main toolbar in Cohler Classical.